Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me at home. And I hope the people that are taking part on the session online, which 3 people are doing so, are already logged in. Checking here. We are going to start a bit 1 minute late, but it's to allow people to return from the coffee break. This session is called Imagine Sustainable Small-Scale Fisheries in Portugal and Spain. And we will start with, we'll start immediately with a presentation by Paula QUINTEIRO. Thank you, Paula.
Yes. Okay. So good morning to everyone. I'm here at Paula QUINTEIRO from the University of Aveiro, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about the environmental assessment of the sardine fisheries in Portugal.
Paula, posso falar um pouco mais alto?
I will try. Maybe the microphone is there.
It's there for also so that everyone can hear.
Okay, try. So let's talk a bit about the environmental assessment of the sardine fishery in Portugal. I just briefly present the outline. If this works. No, it's not.
Toca no ecrã com o rato primeiro. E normalmente funciona.
It's working. Okay. Yes. Thank you. So, this work is about sardine. Sardine is one of the most captured species by first small trawlers in the Portuguese coastal areas, and in very significant Portugal fisheries context, and also in the Portuguese diet. More than 50 of the fish that is captured and handled in national ports is consumed as fresh sardines. So taking in this account, the goal of this study is to apply life cycle testing methodology to assess the environment impacts related to the capture and landing of these species in Portugal. So let's try this. So this is the outline. Briefly, I will tell you what is the life cycle assessment and how it should be applied. And I will show you the case study that we conducted, the environmental impact assessment results, and then some take-home messages. So, what is the life cycle assessment? This is a very comprehensive methodology that has been applied. The objective and the purpose is to evaluate the potential environmental impacts, not only of products but also services and organizations. They take into account the full life cycle of the product in this case, from the extraction of the raw materials throughout the production, distribution, use, and all the end life of the products. So to do this, we need to take into account all the inputs, if there are raw materials, energy, water, and so on, everything that is needed to produce the product, and also the outputs, the products, the crop products, and the related emissions. The life cycle assessment has several standards, namely the ISO 44 and the ISO 4044, that give us the general frameworks and set the standards and guidelines and requirements that we should and is mandatory to follow to apply this methodology. So this is the general structure. We have 4 main phases: the goal and definition of scope, in which we define the system boundaries, the functional units, and I will show you what is the functional unit. Then we have the inventory analysis, and this is the phase that is more time consuming, let's say, because we need to collect all the data. Then we have the impact assessment, in which we translate inventory data to the environmental impacts. And this I just try just to show you why this is done related to the climate change. This is one of the impact categories that we are assessing. we have the reference, the carbon dioxide that is emitted. So the characterization factor is 1. All the pollutants in this characterization impacted category that is related to impact to the climate change, as the reference the CO2. So this means that when you are talking about methane, for instance, we know that there are 28 times worse when they are emitted to the atmosphere. So we know that per 1 kilogram of methane, we are emitting 28 kilograms of CO2. So this is just to have an idea how the impact assessment is done. Then we have the interpretation phase. All these phases are interactive, as you saw the double arrow in the scheme, because we need to sometimes to go back and find the system model and so on. Life cycle assessment can be applied for strategies of marketing for differentiated products, and now once even consumers are more and more conscious about the sustainable products. It can be used to identify hotspots and to implement improvement measures, not only to reduce the environmental assessment, but also to improve the efficiency, the energy efficiency of the system, and can also be used to labeling purposes, to report the environment and also the nutritional footprints of these kind of products, and also to support the training, for instance, of packaging for this kind of products. So let's focus on this little case study of fresh sardine. As functional unit, we have 1 kilogram of land and fresh sardine landed in national parks. This functional units means that all the inputs, outputs needs to be related to this unit. And as you can see, the system boundaries are included 2 main systems, the fishery itself and the landing and ocean operations. The construction on the vessels, the engines, the fishing nets are outside of the system boundaries. So we collected all the data related to the diesel consumption, lubricant, ice production to preserve the sardines on the ocean, and also the landing operations and oceans. Related to the inventory data, and they were collected into, say, from 2 purchasers in north of Portugal. They cover 2 years. So there are average data from 2 years, and also the data related to the port, they are primary data. Primary data means that are real data collected from the producers. As you can see, we have fresh sardines, yes, but we are also other species and sardines that are rejected by control, sanitary control, because they are smaller size than the authorized to commercialize. So we need to use in this case, we choose to use an economic allocation and to deal with these difference of product, because it's not fair to locate all the impacts to the fresh sardine. Oh, sorry. So applying an impact assessment method, the environmental footprint, that is now the new method developed by the European Commission. Here we are the total, impacts per each impact that we selected, and just briefly comment related to the climate change. We found the values of 0.29 kilograms of CO2 equivalent, and if we compare these values with the literature, we found that these values are relatively very smaller than we found in the other papers, but we need to take into account that sometimes the system boundaries are different, and more important, the efficiency energy of the vessels are completely different. So this means different diesel consumptions, which directly affects this impact data. So showing this more in perspective of a relative contribution of all the operations for all the impact categories evaluated, it's easier to see and understand than for all impact categories, with the exception of the residues that are related to extraction on minerals and metals from earth. And the hotspot is the diesel production and consuming during the fishery stage. And in the category of the results used, the hotspot was the production of the lubricant oil used in the vessels. So this is the idea and open our eyes that perhaps it's need to do something related to these hotspots, and we can propose some improvement measures, let's say, or improve the efficient energy of the vessels, or else perhaps try to alternative fuels. And just to finish, to have some take-home message. So life cycle assessment enables to identify the hotspots, which is useful to identify alternatives to improve deployment, to process and support different decision makers. And as possible, measures to decrease the environment impacts of some fishes include the increasing of energy efficiency, as I already said, and also perhaps study alternative fuels in the vessels. Of course, that is a study that we call it at present today. We need to expand our system boundaries. It's important to consider, for instance, the different types of cooking of the sardine, for instance, to allow to compare with other products that are ready to consume. And it's very important at the inventory stage to have a very large period of time, because the inventory data can fluctuate between years, so having a nice period of time which includes this. So from my side, it's all, and thank you very much for your attention.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions in the room? We have 3 minutes for questions. If anyone wants to put a question to Paula, I have one for you. I've been trying to toy a bit around the life cycle analysis. It's pretty data demanding. What do you consider for someone that wants to do life cycle? What are the main difficulties of getting data from to do life cycle analysis?
So if you want to do a real study, let's say a credible study, yes, the inventory stage is very demanding. And when we have interest from producer, it's much more easier because we have the collaborations, and if they are interested, they do the efforts. But it's very difficult at the same time because they have not prepared to give us the data as we need it, because we need all the kind of data, and sometimes they have the data but spread everywhere, so we need to allocate the data to the product that we have studied, and sometimes the material balance doesn't close, and sometimes we have a mass generation, for instance. The company gives us the data, and then when we are trying to close the balance, we have more products at the outside of the company than at the beginning. So it's mandatory, and it's very difficult to have this data. Of course, we have databases, but databases is only to complement.
It's a tricky one to get it.
Yes.
Good quality.
Good quality.
I'm trying to check online if someone puts questions. Anyone that put questions online? I'm reading the chat. I don't see any. Anyone, any questions in the room? No, if we don't have any questions, thank you, Paula, again. And we will move to the next. We'll move to the next, which is Sophia Alexandra, and Sophia substituting Mafalda, that's in the program. So the presentation is by a large group of people. Sophia will be talking. Welcome, Sophia. And Sophia is again from Portugal. A very Portuguese focus session. There's one Spanish person. So a bit of fresh air here. The Iberian Peninsula being Portugal instead of Spain. Says the Portuguese chair. So.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Like Cristina said, I'm Sophia. I'm from the Center of Marine Sciences of the University of the Algarve, and I'm here making the presentation because Mafalda unfortunately couldn't be here. So I'm going to talk to you about the ParticiPESCA project. Okay, it's a co-management of the Algarve pots and traps fishery. Works. Okay, it's fine. So you might be wondering why the octopus pot and trap fishery and why the Algarve. So in Portugal, the common octopus is the second most valuable landed species, right after the sardine that we just talked about. The Algarve, it's where the largest fleet is settled, and in 2021 we had 548 fishing licenses, and they cover the whole coast. Okay, one of the most profitable it's one of the most profitable fisheries, and the Algarve is one of the most important regions for these fisheries. For example, in 2021, the octopus landings in the Algarve were 52.2% of the whole landings in Portugal. So this fishery is very important, not only because of the fleet size and the volume of landings, but also because of the employment source. It's a very, very important source of employment for the fisheries in the Algarve. So, as you might know, the octopus fisheries is not managed under the quota regulations of the CFP, and so each member state has a lot of freedom to manage these fisheries. And in Portugal, this fisheries is managed under the top-down approach. And this means that basically all the regulations and the measures, they are decided in the government, in the higher levels. And so this causes a lot of low satisfaction and a lack of compliance with the regulations by the fishermen. Despite this, most of the measures that are regulated today, like the minimum landing size, the prohibition of the use of live baits, and the closing season that's actually under concept publication right now, they were proposed by the fishermen. And so the fishermen are very interested in getting their inputs in the regulations, and the government it's very happy to accept their inputs and their help. And so this is a strategic opportunity to enforce the fishing participation and to change from a top-down approach to a bottom-up approach or a co-management system. So taking into account all of the things that I just said, there was a project called Portuguese Institute. It was divided into 2 cycles. The first one in 2014, where the researchers and stakeholders tried to understand the perception and the opinion of the fishermen and the fishers associations on the management of this fishery. And the second cycle that happened in 2015 that had the aim to understand how to solve the fishermen's problems. From these two cycles, from the whole project, the two report came the Green Book of the Octopus Fisheries of the Algarve, that basically is summed up a lot of learned lessons and some recommendations from this fishery. So in the ParticiPESCA project, we are taking a participatory approach where we basically try and get every stakeholder, fishing associations. We are working with 13 fishing associations, authorities, NGOs, and also the research institutions to come together and work in various points, like the implementation and the management of the co-management committee, monitoring the resource and the fisheries, giving some power and some voice to the fisheries and the fishing associations, the valuing of the resource, the communication and dissemination. We have had a lot of participatory meetings. We have had 6 so far since last year, and we are all actually having another one in 2 weeks. Within the ParticiPESCA project, we created a science advisory group that is currently composed by 19 members of different fields of research, and they represent 9 entities that are all here on this slide. Since April of 2021, we have had 6 meetings where we evaluate the existing measures and discuss some new measures, always with some inputs, personal input of the fishermen and fishing associations, and define some goals and indicators for the management plan. Within the science advisory group, we decided to create 3 separate working groups. So we call them the subcommittees to work specifically on some points. We have the fisheries proposed measures, the performance indicators, and the fishery goals. For all this process, we decided to use the fishery. It's the easy way of saying framework for integrated stock and aggregate evaluation. And so this is a step-by-step process to help us come up with the management plan, how we should work to get to the management plan, because it's a very long and hard process. And the fishery is very useful for data limited fisheries like the octopus fishery in the Algarve. When we began this process, it was very data limited. It still is a little bit, but we are trying to work so it's not anymore. And so the fishery is very useful because it takes into account all the stakeholders' inputs and has them into account in the setting goals, into the data collection, the interpretation, and the evaluation of that data, and also takes into account the input of the stakeholders into the management rules, the creating of the management rules, and everything else in the process. So it's very the stakeholder inputs is key in this process. So in the ParticiPESCA project and in creating a co-management committee, there is a lot of steps. It's a very long process. We are currently in working the plan. We are still in step 1 with a lot of discussion, a lot of meetings, but at the end of the year, we aim to have an ordinance that will basically say how we will work together, every stakeholder, how we will define the structures of the co-management committee, and how we will do decision-making process will work. And then we have the fishery management plan. We also hopefully will have one a draft by the end of the year that will say how we will manage the fishery. And basically we will define the targets, the rules, and the regulations for the development of a sustainable fishery. I know everything I talked so far, it's a lot of desk work, it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of just getting together with all the stakeholders, but we also have the more interesting parts for some. That is the field work. We do a lot of field work. We go on boards with the fishermen a lot. We are also working on identifying the bycatch that comes in the pots and the traps. And also we are working on some lab experiments with the octopus, with some tags and some behavior experiments. Just to finish, and I want to leave here the goal, the main goal of the ParticiPESCA project, that is to contribute to the sustainability of the octopus fishery in the Algarve through an innovative co-management approach, and hopefully allow for a paradigm shift of the Portuguese management systems. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Any questions in the room for Sophia? Let's try to see if we have in the chat. Any questions? Please.
say you have 19 members. You have 19 members. How do you select? Are people really join the meeting, or did you select projects?
Okay, so we have all the entities that they represent, and within the entities, so the stakeholders that would have some input to have on this project, that are interested in the project and they can contribute to the project, and they are involved with the fishery itself or something like that. Within the entities chose the representative of the entities. I don't know if I answered the question.
Any more questions? Let me see the chat and the Q&A. Nobody else? So I'll put another question here because you are very good on timekeeping. What do you think is the biggest challenge of doing co-management in the octopus fisheries in the Algarve? What's the general challenge? What's the biggest challenge?
Trying to show to the fishermen that it's possible, because they have been working their whole life with the system, a management system, and I think it's hard to show to them that it's possible. It's possible to change, and it's possible to change for the better, and it's possible that they choose what it's going to change. It's hard to put that in their heads, because it's possible. It's a long process, and I think that's one of the things that makes them think that's not possible, but it is, and I think we are.
Thank you, Sofia. Obrigada.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we continue in Portugal, and we're going to move to Luís. Eu acho, Luís, puxa para baixo e diz assim, mas não tens de contar. Tanto cá em baixo, como se não conseguisse ver a pessoa. Pega no quadradinho e puxa lá para baixo.
Okay, hello everybody, thank you for coming for this presentation. So I'm going to talk about the understanding the special dynamics of the small-scale algarve traps and pods fisheries. And I've done this work with all these colleagues that almost all of them are here.
Toca no ecrã primeiro. Se tocares no ecrã, depois já consegues mexer.
Okay. So, first of all, why the octopus fishery? It is the most important fisheries for the small-scale fleet in Portugal. We have a different number of licenses here, but it's around 600 licenses that are working in 2021, and the Algarve has a major contribution for these fisheries with almost 4,000 tons and more than 29 million euros for this year. So in regional terms, it has a huge impact in numbers of vessels, economical value, and also the role, the social role. So in terms we can see on the plot on the left, it's the proportion of the Algarve catches for the whole country, all the Portugal mainland. So we have almost 50% of the total catches of octopus. And in terms of in the Algarve, when you compare the octopus fisheries with all the others catches, you can see that in terms of value, we have more or less 40%, and it's increasing a lot, and around 20% of weight of the catches. So this work is inside the ParticiPESCA project, which is on that task resource and fisheries monitoring, which has some main objectives. So better understand the fisheries and the resource, of course, and improve the knowledge of the special behavior of the fishermen and the gear used. And very important also, it's improved trust between fishermen and science. Since we are working with them, so we improve our relationship with them. When we start this work, it arises that question. So can we use this special information to estimate traps and catches? So first we have to look at the fleet and the gear. The octopus fleet is divided in Portugal by local and coastal fleets with the threshold of 9 meters overall length, and it's characterized in this case for the octopus fisheries. The local fleet has an overall length of 6.7 meters, and the coastal fleet is much bigger with 11.6. So right now we can see that we have completely different fleets operating on these fisheries. In terms of traps and pots that they are allowed, it's mandatory by law that they have 3,000 for each vessel and 750 traps. The traps are divided by the size of the boat, so we have the threshold for 9 meters and 1,000 for vessels between 9 and 12 meters and 1,250 for vessels bigger than 12 meters. And then we start looking at the traps, and the traps are different. We have a lots of different traps on these fisheries. In terms of size, the height is between 5 to 7 net meshes, the length from 9 to 14, and the width from 9 to 12. So we can see here that we have a lot. We didn't study right now what the effect this have on the captures. And the métier, so we have already seen the fleet, the gear, and the métier. So for each daily fishing trip, usually they hold it 3.12 lines of traps and 0.66 lines of pots. And each line of pots has an average of 185 pots, and each line of traps has an average of 300 traps, around 300 traps. It also works at different depths. The pots has an average depth of 22.8, and the traps an average depth of 43.7, and also differs a lot on the soaking times. The pots can stay on average 9 days, and the traps 5 days. So we can see that we have different métiers for different for the different year. In terms of the weight structure of the commercial catches that we see on board, that we observe on board, we have lots of different weights, but usually the weights for all the octopus are between 800 grams to 1 kilograms. For juveniles, they are between 650 and 750, but the average weight of the adults that we saw, it's around 1.5 kilograms. On board, we see a huge range of weights, from 40 grams to more than 7 kilograms. So it's completely a species that has a lot of different weights. So this is the data that we are really interested to reach. So for each fishing trip, we have a global catch of 11.8. And if you just look for the adults, which is the legal part of the fisheries, we have 9.3%. And for juveniles, 2.5%. The mean octopus catch using traps, it's 139 kilograms per fishing trip, and 65 kilograms if they use pots. So we reach that value for the octopus catch. For each trap, we have 200 grams, and for each pot we have 169 grams catches. We also look at the fishing behavior that the fishermen have. So in our onboard sampling, we apart from the traditional things, we do the catcher georeferencing, the fishing operation behavior, and the fishing trip segmentation and identification. And this one has two main objectives: the characterization of the behavior of the boat in every phase of the fishing, and gathering data for training machine learning algorithms. You can see here on this plot, I don't have, but on the red dots, we can see when they leave the harbor and go to the fishing area. And then we have the difference. In red, it's spots, and then they move between the lines, the strings, which is a different color, and then they hold traps, and they deploy, they made the settlement of the trap. So everything it's identified by us to train the algorithm. So in terms of what they move, we know right now that this is some data that we don't know about this fishery, that the vessel can travel about 60 kilometers per day, which is around 32.5 nautical miles. And most of this travel is on the travel between the harbor and the fishing area, and also for the settlement and between the streams. So this is a huge number that we are not expecting, and that will have a lots of implications. For instance, if you want to go green, we want to have electrical motors that can cover that kind of distance for the fishermen can change. So using GPS data, the average distance between each trap and each pot was calculated. So we have 14.7 distance between traps and 16.6 for pots. So answering our primary question, we can now estimate the number of traps used per lines or fishing trips using only spatial data with the average error that we have right now of 10 traps per fishing trips. And this data also allows to estimate captures based on the average catch per trap or using adult catch rates and average weight per trap. We also look at the speed, the velocity during the fishing trip. So we identify three main groups: the travel and travel between lines, which is a speed at 14 kilometers per hour, holding the traps in the pots, which is very slow. It's from 4 kilometers to 5 kilometers, and setting the trap, which is not at full speed, but it's almost at full speed. So with this data, we realize that we cannot use velocity to see difference between traps and pots. They use almost the same range. We also do the mapping of the juveniles. We have three study areas on these study areas, and we see that it's are related mainly with the coastal lagoon and also with rivers. So final considerations. We are getting the tools to better understanding the dynamic of these fisheries. However, we have to make it clear, this species needs, the time is very important because they have a cycle very, very narrow. So we have to look at all, not only the special context, but also the time context. So we have to manage that to make, since they grow very fast, we have only a small window to produce sustainable captures, very narrow. New fishery concepts arise from this work. Mainly this one, the existence of private fishing areas. The fishermen use the plots to define their own areas. And so the plots play a major role mainly on that part. And the difficulty to calculate real fishing effort. There's a huge number of illegal deer that we are trying to calculate. And it's difficult also to calculate the soaking times. So juveniles have a broad distribution, as I showed you before. In some areas show more than the others. So for us to protect juveniles, special measures must cover larger areas since they have a broad distribution. Our next big challenge will be to fully determine the settlement and holding the streams by a single vessel using GPS. I hope Nuno will help on this task. And the other big challenge is to determine the essential area for the octopus fisheries in the Algarve. For instance, the most important fisherman in the Algarve needs 37 square kilometers to work, to produce that amount. So it's something that we are in the Algarve, we don't have so many space for marine. We need marine special planning very carefully for that. So thank you for your attention.
I take the sound off, I'm not that bad. Any questions?
I have a question. How do you get the information from the catches? Like, do you have on-board observers?
Yes, we are on board and we take all the measurements of all the octopus that, well, not all, sometimes we miss one or two, but most of the time when we go on board, we measure everything. that.
And then you also can measure the soak time because you go on board vessels.
Yes.
So
No, we cannot measure the soak time. It's the fisherman that says the soak time because we are not on board when they set the line. Well, we have to trust, but usually, yes, usually, because we have. That's why I put on the beginning. This task it's also to improve our relation with the community of the fishermen. So this is an important part also. It's not only the data, but getting because we are on the co-management project. So that's why it's important to go to the sea and be there with the fishermen.
Any more questions? Nothing online? Online people, you can put questions. I hope. Nothing. Well, thank you, Luís.
Okay.
Next, we continue in Portugal with David, but the technician here, Paula, I think, she's just going to put Marta as a panelist because Marta not as a panelist yet. So just one little second, David.
Should I say something?
No.
Okay.
She's going to put her presentation up. Don't worry.
So thank you, Cristina. Good morning, everyone. I'm David from the Portuguese Institute from Sea and Atmosphere, and today I will talk about a work that we have been performing inside of the ParticiPESCA project. So the title is, do you imagine an octopus trap fishery only catching octopus? So, oops. Yeah. So, bycatch is one of the most significant issues affecting fisheries management today. And why is that? Because it represents a direct implication on biodiversity loss. It's end up to be a waste of animal lives. And of course, the unnecessary and most of the times avoidable character of these unwanted catches depreciate the fisher's public image and change the consumer opinion. And the worst part is it end up to devaluate the target reserves. So, in the scope of the ParticiPESCA project, that Sofia and Luís talked about it before, that is based on the implementation of a co-managed models for octopus fishing in the Algarve. We also have other tests that complement those objectives. And one of that is the resource and fishery monitoring that deals with the resource valuing. So we propose here to analyze the bycatch and discards among other things. So, as they said, Algarve octopus fishing is very important. It's the largest Portuguese octopus fishery fleet. There's a lot of license based on the Algarve, of pods and traps, and represents an important or exclusive, sometimes exclusive income to thousands of fishers. So the question here is the Algarve octopus small-scale species is only catching octopus. So we tried for the first time, at least as far we know, to describe the bycatch species occurring in the Algarve octopus trap fishery, to infer about the potential fishery economic and ecological impact of these unwanted catches, and to contribute to improve the onboard best practice to reduce impacts and increase selectivity. Despite being a very important fishery in the Algarve in Portugal, it's still a data poor, it's a data limited fishery. So we seek mainly to contribute to increase the data in this subject, in this fishery. So I guess the first perception of the octopus traps and most of the traps is the tendency is to not attract bycatch. At least it was my opinion before working in this, because traps normally are seen as gears with higher selectivity. But in the case of the octopus traps, and because they are baited with sometimes with fish, sometimes with crabs, sometimes with both, carnivores, scavengers or omnivorous individuals are attracted by bait. Traps end up to represent a fixation spot to some organisms like seahorses and squid spawns and cuttlefish spawns. The trap design and the movement of the traps end up to destroy the epibenthic species that lives the sea bottom. There is a high soaking time of the traps. Some traps can lie in the sea maybe for 1 week or 2 weeks, and we still have the entanglement in the ropes that can kill higher animals. Despite the majority of the individuals are caught alive and in good conditions, after fishing practice, like rebaiting, gear operation, handling and transport, several damage and mortality occurs. Furthermore, most of the traps are not prepared to be open to a rapid release, removing all individuals. Of course, if we start thinking about sometimes 1,000 of traps for a line or for a night of fishing, take all the organisms to save them. It will take maybe hours to the fishermen to take every one of the organisms, so they don't do that. And furthermore, the several retained species like fish or crustaceans that they caught, they end up to release to the sea and represent an extra bait source for the traps. Of course, this information is essential to understand the fishery, and of course is a sensitive indicator for a potential certification. So, as Luis said, we carry out onboard sampling service where we on volunteer vessels. Bycatch and discard organisms were handled, collected from the traps. Of course, we try to minimize the mortality of the organisms, especially the sensitive ones. And other information such as the number of traps, type of bait, soaking time, distance between traps, and geographic position were also recorded. As example, here is a conger in the trap, and here is a fisherman taking the individuals and also observer. So at this time we perform 40 surveys, and we are doing more. 71 lines of track, a total of 38 hours at sea. It's a very big effort. But it's the best way, it's proved that it's the best way to obtain data on bycatch once they are to collect accurate and reliable information on these catches. Of course, the boats, most of people that work in small-scale fishery boats knows that boats are very small. There are no conditions to be, but it's very tough to be on board in these fishing vessels. So this is a photo of me sleeping during one night of work, and it's very tough to take this kind of data. And I thank my colleagues for all the work that we have been doing in the last year. So we also, of course, once at the laboratory, we carry on to the taxonomic identification of all of the organisms that we collect at the sea. And we also take some information on their edibility, on minimum landing weight, and other biological or ecological features. So the main results, just to resume, a mean of 46% of the traps were found with individuals of bycatch inside, a minimum of 20.4, but in a maximum of 88.9. And a total number of species of bycatch of 177 species, with a total number of more than 5,000 individuals. For you to have an idea, we found a trap with 79 individuals in just one trap, with 13 species inside. Most of them are mollusca, arthropoda, and chordata, mainly fishes. So here I can just briefly present the most emblematic species that we found in our surveys. Here we have the mollusk cephalopods, of course, discards of small octopus. We have cuttlefish, we have spawns of cuttlefish and squids. We have other species of octopus. Of course, a lot of species. Most of them with commercial value, but they don't keep them to sell or to eat. go to their houses to consume. Of course, a lot of echinoderms, also crustaceans. It's just the main ones. Also another type of species such as porifera and anemones and polyplecophora, kittens. And just to you to have an overall view, if we take the big picture, we found 31 individuals. For each kilogram of octopus, we found 35 individuals. It's the same thing to say that for each 1 kilo of octopus, we catch 600 grams of bycatch. So if we transport this to the numbers of the tons that are caught in Algarve every day, and to the number of traps that might be at the water every day, it's a very important component, the bycatch in this fish. So of course, it's also true for sensitive and emblematic species such as gorgonians and the seahorses. Until this moment, we catch 85 individuals of seahorses, and despite the rapid releasing, there is a high mortality once at the boat. Of course, that there are a lot of researchers focused on these species to protect these species, and for the other side, the fishermen are cutting them. Of course, not with bad intention, but of course they are two conflict activities, and we have to pay attention. About mortality of protected and fragile species, there are gorgonians or corals. There are slow grower species and they are the base of some benthic habitats and very important ecological. As I spoke before, the movement of the traps during soaking time end up to destroy these organisms and induce severe damage in the bottom, the sea bottom. So, how to minimize bycatch in octopus fishing? Of course, it will be the main output of our work. Promote on-board best practice. Promote our awareness measures. Respect the hotspot and protected areas from some organisms, and report the catch locations and the quantities. We also propose a gear redefinition. Promote a simple trap mechanism to rapidly unload the bycatch organisms at the time of gear collection, as this trap here. There are some parts of the Algarve that the fishermen already use this kind of trap that can be opened rapidly and shake the organism inside and save them. And we also pay attention to a mechanism that can recover the traps once they are lost in the sea. That and will avoid, of course, the ghost fishing of thousands of traps that are every year that are lost in the sea. So just to finish, final quote: given the growing worldwide demand for sustainable fishing associated to rising public consciousness and perception, of course, it becomes crucial to increase knowledge about bycatch and ultimately preserve the commercial value of the target species and, of course, the octopus fleet itself. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Do you have information on so for how long the traps have been worked, and can you correlate them with the types of species and numbers so that you say it's a
yes, we have, actually we have a lot of ideas within this because the fishery is very complex, because sometimes they use crab, a live crab as bait, and attracts less individuals than a dead sardine or a dead mackerel. So we have to combine those factors. Of course, we also have to deal with soaking time. Of course, a trap that is 1 week at the water might have more individuals than a trap that was put in there yesterday. Of course, we have a lot of objectives within this project, and of course, our idea is to correlate in the type of species with the type of bait and the number of days it's at soaking time, and yeah, a lot of information. And of course, we seek to publicate this data and more complex data within this topic. Yes.
Anybody?
So you kind of answer to the question. So did you make a difference between because it looks like they're using sometimes different baits?
Yes.
Is there a difference of bycatch depending on the bait?
Yes. The general from a superficial analysis, there are a low number of species and a low number of individuals when using a live crab, because the crabs are alive and there are no don't attract the carnivores or the scavengers, all the organisms that opportunistic organisms that want a free meal or an easy meal. So when they use fish, a lot of there are a larger number of species coming into the trap. The problem is that sometimes they use fish, and the other day we go to replicate the sample and they use crab, and the other day they use fish and crab. And one day they use small traps, and the other day they use big traps. So it's not easy to deal with so many factors. But will be a challenge in the data treatment that we are doing right now, but the first publication will come in soon. So be attentive.
Thank you, David. Obrigada. I have a lot of questions for you, but I'll do it over the coffee break because
I'm afraid of that.
Martha, I'll put it over the coffee
Thank you.
break. Thank you very much. Next, we have Marta speaking, but Marta is online.
Okay, so thank you very much for permitting me to present here the organization and everybody that worked with this in this project. So this project is about measuring fishing effort and estimating fishing effort. So what is fishing effort? It's the amount of effort spent to capture the resource. That means that it can be like time fishing or or area fished by square or whatever unit we consider, our number of boats acting by grid cell, by unit of space of time. That can be, the spatial unit might be 300 square meters, and the time might be for 1 month or for 1 year, whatever. So the idea is to produce maps where we can see where the boats have been fishing and the fishermen working. So what do we need fishing effort maps for? To start with, for spatial management, for example, because if we want to protect the small-scale fisheries, which are declining, we should protect the areas where they act, for example. So if the government receives a request for a permission, for example, for doing a large aquaculture area or wind farms or whatever, if we know that that area is very important for the SSF, then the government should have this information so it can protect the fishermen, or to see where they're working, to select marine protected areas, and also to test the impact on the ecosystem, and further to economic and social studies, SOC assessment models, etc. So it's very, very important to estimate accurate fishing efforts. So the large-scale fisheries already have a VMS system where we track the boat's movement, so it is possible, but the VMS doesn't have a scale that is compatible with the small-scale fisheries. So recent European legislation that will oblige boats to be tracked somehow. There is several tracking alternatives, and with this aim as well, we organized an ICES workshop about estimating fishing effort for SSF fisheries. Everybody is welcome. So if the idea is to have regular meetings to see what people are doing in Europe and what kind of approaches they're being done, and to compare these approaches, and especially to produce protocols to estimate fishing effort in small-scale fisheries. So if anybody is interested, just send me an email asking about it. Some of the people on this audience are in this group as well, so yeah. So we have a pioneer project in Portugal, which is called Montreal, where we have all the bivalve dredge fishing tracked since 2017. We have GPS trackers. We also have similar GPS trackers in some octopus traps. and some pots as well, and some nets that have recently been added to the database. So we imagine that one day we will have most important fisheries being tracked, and we'll be able to see where the fisheries operate and how do they are operating. So the objective of this work is to compare the different methods that we can use to discriminate when the fishing boats are traveling or fishing, and to produce these fishing effort maps, to evaluate the effect of temporal resolution. That means that the GPS that we have now, they give us every 30 seconds interval data, but most of the works done in Europe, they have much broader scales, like every 1 minute, or even people that are proposing every 30 minutes, that we find that for the SSF, they're absurd. It will not work well. And to evaluate the effect of pre and post-processing the data, because the data comes very messy, and it's something that is generally not mentioned in the protocols and in the works, but it's kind of very important. And to make an easily operationable procedure to develop a protocol so that we can apply it overall. So we actually picked 180 boat trips, and we validated by expert. That means that I've produced these fancy maps, and my boss, who is Miguel Gaspar, was actually looking at the maps and saying, here they started fishing, here they stopped fishing. Because of COVID, it was the only alternative we had. And so we actually have 2 fishing gears, that would be bivalve dredge and octopus traps, and we actually have 3 areas in Portugal with very different characteristics of the fleet operating, one in the north, one in the center, and one in the south, that actually cover all the fishing grounds of bivalves. So an example of bivalve dredge, we can see that, I don't know if you see here my pointer, but we can see that they make these loops. This is one of the patterns we find. The boat strips actually have very different patterns. We might have like 5 or 6 different patterns. And the boat strips, they get out of the dock, and then they will go fishing. In blue you can see the traveling, and in the different colors you can see the fishing events, which is the moments that they were actually fishing. So this is what we want to do with our algorithms, to distinguish when they were traveling and when they were fishing. So if we increase the time resolution, or if we decrease the time resolution, we can see that we can lose a lot of information, and this will be also visible by the quantification of the algorithms. So this would be the raw data, the 0. This would be 30 seconds regular data, because the raw data doesn't come regular. So we have to apply some kind of pre-processing procedure to make it regular. But if we consider, for example, 10 minutes, which is very, very little, we lose all this information. That would mean that we would be underestimating the fishing effort quite intensively. So we've tested the different methods. The first one was 2 different fixed speed thresholds. One was estimated by the knowledge of the fisheries, and the other estimated by regression trees. Then I developed a method using the mode and the anti-mode. We also use 3 statistical approaches that have been used in previous works, in Tanya's works. And then we also use machine learning methods. I have a student that is Ron, that is working on different machine learning methods. And from this, we found that the random forces is the one that gives better results. But we're still working on different approaches. So to compare, to see which methods work better, we use both statistical measures of error, and we use the practical consequences in the indicators of fishing effort. That means that if we use one method, what's the difference in the fishing effort estimated? So we use a mixture of these, and the results are very different according to the evaluation measure that we consider and the indicator we consider. I will just present a few of them so you have an idea. So we have simpler approaches. This is just comparing the statistical methods with the simpler approaches. And we can see that the fixed and the mode would give the better results for in this case. And this would be to see a difference between the zones. You can see here that the difference between the the models are much higher than the differences between the zones and the fisheries. And you can see the effect of temporal resolution. Once again, some methods are very robust to temporal resolution differences, and some others are very sensitive to the temperature, to the temporal resolution. And this would be an example of a plot showing the effect in the fishing indicators, where you can see that the Gaussian mixture model and the anti-mode would be the best approaches. So this is something that we need to integrate, these different indicators, in both statistical and both in terms of fisheries. And when we compared with the machine learning method, which the best one was random forest, as I already said, we stopped doing statistics completely, and we kept only the machine learning. And yeah, so for the machine learning, we basically used evaluation measures, and because the way statistics and the machine learning methods are built are different, we had to use different comparison procedures for this. So this is what we will do in principle. We will use the random forest for operationalizing the procedure, which is what we're doing now. So in the end, we get this kind of prediction maps of the fishing effort. So this would be kind of our objective. We're working now on the indicators to be used by the fishing effort. I have a student working on this as well to see, which is very important. So from these maps, what kind of measures make sense and what kind of measures do not make sense to use. So in conclusions, we consider that fishing efforts should be measured in less than 2 minutes resolution in these fleets, and for small-scale fisheries, I would say. The differences between gear type and zone were not as important as the method, and data acquisition, pre- and post-processing have a large impact on the results. And taking into account the multiple criteria we considered, we will use random forest with post-processing the information for classification. So thank you very much. Any suggestions will be very welcome. Please write me an email or speak with Miguel Gaspar and Andrea, which are the co-authors that are there presently. Unfortunately, I was not able to be there, but yeah, thank you very much.
We can see you now. Thank you, Marta.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody, please, the biologist in the room?
Tanya is making, can you hear me? Tanya is making me a question. No, Tanya, we have tried, we have used the...
Wait, Marta, a second. The question is, a really interesting talk, Marta. Question, for random forests, I assume you are using more variables to infer fishing than for the other methods, whatever that means.
Yeah, it's for random forest is the machine learning procedure, and generally the machine learning classifiers, if you use more variables, you get better results, kind of thing. And we found that in our case, this did not happen. We started by using different behaviors of the track and using depth and other characteristics of the boats as additional variables for the random forest. And we actually found that we have similar results if we just use the 3 variables that the GPS gives us.
Thank you, Marta. Anyone else in the room? People you can't see? No?
I don't see anybody.
Okay, thank you, Marta. Thanks. I'm gonna
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. For the sake of time as well, we will move on to another person, which I'm assuming it's again from Portugal. I think the next presentation. We're going to end with one from Spain, so it doesn't look like it's a Portuguese session, right? So next we have Warleson. Sorry, I'm sure I'm saying your name wrong.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Warleson. And we can
It's Rachi, it's Warleson.
Nice to meet you.
So hello everyone. My name is Warleson Peixoto, and I'm a research assistant to the Institute of Marine Research in the University of Azores, Portugal. So today I'm going to talk about the triple bottom line to access the performance of the demersal small-scale fisheries in the Azores. So the small-scale fisheries in the Azores represents an important source of income and job positions in the archipelago. The most important fisheries in the region is the demersal fisheries. So its land represents at least 60% of the total production in value, being the most important fisheries in the region. This fisheries is considered as small-scale fisheries with 90% of the total fleet with less than 12 meters length, using different hooks and line gears to target different species. The bottom long line fishery is one of the most important types of the demersal fisheries in the Azores, in terms of the vessels, in terms of the lands, and in the economy value. However, recent studies have shown that an increase in the demersal effort and a decline tendency in the stock levels. So traditionally, most of the management and sustainability fisheries are made by performing traditional single species assessment through different models and different approaches. Although these approaches are very important, they are focused at only ecological indicators of the stocks. So since fish impacts can affect not only the stocks, but also the economy and social aspects of a given region by losses of jobs and income that can have a significant impact in any regions, mostly in the regions that are heavily depends of the fisheries. So thinking about that, since the fisheries are a complex and multidisciplinary system, we need a holistic assessment to considering not only the stock status, but also the ecological, social, and economic indicators of the fisheries. They are important for a comprehensive assessment of the sustainability of the fishing sector. So these studies, we are using the triple bottom line indicators, which are a tool of the fisheries performance indicators approach to make a preliminary assessment of the sustainability performance of the bottom long line demersal fisheries in the Azores archipelago, assessing the ecological, economic, and the community indicators of the fisheries. So for this assessment, we selected only the bottom long line flat in the Azores, and we selected 5 target species that together they make up about more than 60% of the lands. So to make this assessment, we use also like 68 metrics distributed in the 14 dimensions that make together represent 3 indicators, that is like ecological, economic, and community indicators. All these metrics were scored in a 1 to 5 score level, when 1 is the worst score and the 5 is the best score level. And also after that, our results were compared with the average score of 97 fisheries in developing countries, and also with the top 10 most sustainable fisheries in the world, according to the fisheries performance indicator approach. So here in the results, we can see our results. The results of this work is in the orange. The average score of the fisheries in the yellow means developed countries, and the top 10 most sustainable fisheries in the world is the green line. So in these results by metrics in the radar graphic, we had generally a good performance. Values were closer to process the top 10 fisheries, most sustainable fisheries in the world. So the result shows that the lowest score, it was in the ecology dimension, followed by economic and community dimension that have like the best score. When we are comparing all these results with developed countries and the top 10 most sustainable fisheries in the world, Azores fisheries performed better. Scores when we are compared with the top 10 indicators. So our preliminary results indicate that this fisheries is more sustainable than fisheries in developing countries, and it needs more improvements to reach the top 10 most sustainable fisheries in the world, mostly in the economic indicators, because in the most in the ecological indicators, sorry, because in the economic and the community fisheries presented good scores to provide the maximum economy and the social benefits. So that's it's pretty short. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Could you please turn the presentation off? We have time for one very quick question if anyone wants to put, otherwise I'll pass to the next speed talk. And you have there Walterson's email if you want.
Can you stop sharing the screen?
Could you please stop sharing, Walterson?
Yeah. I'm just looking for how to stop.
On the top.
On the top. All right. Yes, I found. Thank you.
Actually, I think we don't have any. Thank you very much, Walterson. And for the sake of time, I'm going to move to the next one because I'm very aware that we are really reaching our final 5 minutes of presentation. Thank you very much.
Hello, Javier.
And now, finally, Spain. Javier, are you there?
Hello everyone. Okay, this project is about the integrations of the traditional sociological. It's a sociological study that was part of the Sustainable Sea project. Is designed by Fundación Lonchanet and myself, and was promoted by the Provincial Federation of Cofradías of Pontevedra. For improving in the management and exploration of the common octopus in the Rías Baixas of Galicia, northwest of Spain. Our project in this moment is to resolve about the problem of this territory, to characterize and analyze the main inefficiencies in the extractive and economic management dynamics in the common octopus. Then, what is the problem with the common octopus fishery in this moment, in 2010 to the present? Marketing or sales behavior, unreported and regulation sales, centralized and non-participatory management, environmental impacts of fishing network, and the problem of the climate change. Then one conclusion about these projects is to connect a change of model and belief of the systems of the public policy and the fishermen, and to create the conditions for dialogic agreements between fishers, stakeholders, and policy makers. We can see, I imagine, about the evolution of the amount and the price of the octopus, and this is the order we use to say a tool. And this tool tries to show different things about what happened with this area in Galicia. And this image represents the fishing network, many fishing trams or fishing ports on the bottom of the sea. And the other map gives an image of the local ecological knowledge and the most frequent toponyms of the fishing areas by the fishermen of the Rías Baixas. A current view of the common octopus is described with this image. What is the fisher like? The finishing trap used in the NASA, the kino basket trap that attracts the octopus with a bait at once, and he enters and can leave. The number of the traps per boat is limited and also catched 3,050 kilograms per boat and day, and the minimum weight the octopus is 1 kilogram. The timetable is limited 1 hour before sunrise until 14 p.m. And the other, this is the tense of the study. Characterization of the ownerships is a long survey we make. And for the another relevant information we take is in Rias Baixas represents the main fishing area of the in Galicia in terms of catch and marketing of Portuguese vulgaris fishing. The most important communities in the province of Pontevedra are in order to the importance Bueu, Bayona, Cangas, Aguarda, Pontevedra. The total number of the boats is 387, and the predominant type of boat is glider versus wooden boat. The degree of acceptance of the regulation is low, 70.8%, and the studies was considered that the limitation of the number of the POPs or traps is necessary in the sector, and it estimate that the creation of marine reserves, 53%, can be beneficial for sustainable management. And another result, the information technology and knowledge is also a factor than small-scale fishing demanded and the time of data collection. We can see the evolution of the species, common octopus. We can see pattern of behavior. The price decrease and there is higher number of catches. This type of behavior illustrates that the biomass of the species is subject to strong pressures and demands, which cause dysfunctionalities in the environment. Informal sales, regulations that don't resolve the long-term protection of the resource and the economic viability of the vessels in the Nasa purple fishery. The traditional marketing process we can see in this image.
You need to wrap up, okay? Sorry.
And in the end, this is the tool we create with the knowledge of the fishermen. And this is the traditional wood when they take notes, and this is the project we make. Okay, so results. Conclusion is to connect this practice with the idea of transformative governance. And we create three dimensions: values, institutions of change, and opportunities to create the condition of the change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you. I don't know if anyone wants to put a question. We passed the time. If there's no questions, I will close the session. I want to thank everybody for actually keeping to the time. You all did pretty well keeping to the time. We had 7 people to present in a short period of time. So thanks very much for working so well. And we had some technical issues. So all in all, thank you very much for all of you to keeping to the time. Thank you.